They say every woman carries a secret truth, something buried so deep even she doesn't recognize it until it claws its way to the surface. Mine revealed itself on a quiet night, the kind of night that doesn't announce its importance until it's already rewritten your entire world. It was the night I understood that my heart wasn't where I had placed it. The man I was with wasn't the one it truly belonged to. For nearly a year, I'd been with Ethan, gentle, reliable, endlessly considerate. The kind of man who'd remember your favorite coffee order and make sure your parents liked him before you even asked. He was safe, in every way a person could be safe. When I was with him, there were no surprises, no storms, no sharp edges to fear. My friends envied me for having found someone so good. But even goodness, when stretched too far, can start to feel like silence. Deep down, beneath the routine smiles and polite affection, something was missing, like the final piece of a puzzle that keeps slipping from your grasp. Then there was Cole, Ethan's best friend. Cole wasn't loud, wasn't charming in the effortless way Ethan was. He didn't try to fill a room. He didn't need to. He carried that quiet sort of confidence that doesn't ask for attention, yet gets it anyway. He'd walk in, and suddenly every conversation seemed to bend slightly toward him, not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't. There was a steadiness about him, a kind of self-possession that made the air around him feel heavier. The first time our eyes met, it wasn't friendly. It wasn't the simple acknowledgement of two people connected by someone else's presence. No, it was something far more dangerous, sharp, deliberate, as though he had peeled away the version of me that smiled too easily, spoke too softly, and left only the truth staring back. I told myself I was imagining it. That it was nothing. That people look at each other all the time. But that glance, his glance, stayed with me, echoing in moments it shouldn't have. Days turned into weeks, and every time our paths crossed, something unspoken grew between us. A silence that wasn't empty but full, humming with everything neither of us dared to voice. I began to notice the way his eyes lingered a heartbeat too long. The way his laughter softened when I was near. The way he looked away as if denying something he already knew. And maybe I had started to look back. It happened on one of those evenings that begin ordinarily and end in ruin. Ethan, Cole, and I were at my place. Pizza boxes scattered across the table, music low, easy laughter filling the air. Then Ethan's phone rang. Work. He groaned, stood, and before leaving, clapped Cole on the shoulder with a grin. Don't let her get bored, man. I'll be back in an hour. If only he had known how much 1 hour could unravel. When the door clicked shut, the world seemed to exhale. The noise from the TV filled the room, but it sounded distant, hollow. Cole sat back on the couch, scrolling through his phone, pretending not to notice the way the air thickened between us. I sat across from him, pretending to care about the show, feeling every second stretch thinner. I'll make some tea, I muttered, desperate for a distraction. The kitchen light felt too bright, the kettle too loud as it began to hum. My hands shook as I reached for the cups. I heard footsteps behind me, slow, unhurried. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence filled the space, wordless and undeniable. I could feel him without turning, like gravity itself had shifted direction. Then the cup slipped. Hot tea spilled across the counter, burning my fingers. I gasped softly, "You okay?" His voice broke the silence, low, concerned, and far too close. He reached for my hand, his fingers wrapping around mine, firm, steady, impossibly warm. It wasn't just touch, and it was recognition. The world seemed to tilt. The pulse in my wrist jumped beneath his thumb. I should have pulled away, but I didn't. My back met the edge of the counter, and when I finally lifted my gaze, he was already watching me. We didn't say a word. But everything that could have been said lived in that silence. All the denial, all the longing, all the things we shouldn't want but did. He moved closer, slow, careful, as though each step forward was a question and I was the answer. His hand slid to my waist, hesitant, waiting. Every muscle in me tensed, not to stop him, but because I knew I wouldn't. When his breath touched the side of my neck, the rest of the world disappeared. It wasn't planned. It wasn't rational. It was raw, reckless, and real. The kind of real that makes everything else in your life look staged. No clothes were shed that night. No words of betrayal were spoken. But we both crossed a line far more dangerous. The invisible one between loyalty and desire. By the time Ethan returned, the air in the room had rearranged itself. We smiled, we laughed, we played our parts. But behind every glance, every polite word, something unspoken pulsed, alive and waiting. The next day, silence filled the space where our guilt should have been. No calls, no texts. But his touch lingered, a phantom I couldn't shake. I still cared for Ethan. Or at least I thought I did. But love, I realized, could sometimes be a habit more than a heartbeat. What I felt for Cole wasn't comfort. It wasn't even certainty. It was chaos, and somehow I needed it. Days passed. Weeks, maybe? We didn't speak of it, didn't acknowledge what had happened. But silence has its own language, and ours said too much. Every time I saw him standing next to Ethan, the ache in my chest returned. Every accidental brush of his hand when passing a plate, every glance across a crowded room. It was a storm barely contained. And yet, it was guilt that found me in quiet moments. Guilt for the man who trusted me, and guilt for wanting something that wasn't mine to want. But guilt and desire don't cancel each other out. They coexist, feeding on one another. Ethan invited him over again one evening. We sat in the living room, the three of us. Ethan laughed easily, recounting some ridiculous story from work. I smiled when I had to. But across the room, Cole's eyes found mine, just a glance. That's all. But in that single look, every buried thing rose to the surface again. The weight of what we hadn't done, and what we had, pressed down like a secret too heavy to hold forever. Later that night, after Ethan went to bed, I found myself standing by the window, unable to sleep. The city lights blinked in the distance, blurred through my reflection. I thought about how everything can look calm from afar, even when it's falling apart. I heard the soft creak of the floorboards behind me. Cole was there. He didn't say a word at first. He just stood near the doorway, hands in his pockets, eyes shadowed by something between regret and need. "We can't keep doing this," he said finally, his voice rough, like the truth itself hurt to speak. "I know," I whispered, even though I didn't, because knowing and stopping aren't the same thing. He took a slow step forward. "Then why does it feel impossible to stay away from you?" I turned, meeting his gaze. Because maybe we were never supposed to. The silence that followed was unbearable. And then it wasn't silence anymore. The space between us disappeared. His hand cupped my jaw, his thumb brushing the edge of my lip, and for the first time there was no hesitation. The kiss wasn't soft. It was the kind that steals breath, the kind you can't come back from. When it ended, I was shaking, not from fear, but from the realization that I had crossed into a place I couldn't return from. We didn't speak after that night. Not the next day, not the one after. Ethan noticed the distance, asked if I was okay. I lied. The guilt began to settle, not like fire, but like fog, slow, thick, impossible to escape. Cole started avoiding me. I told myself it was for the best, that it would fade. But it didn't. It just changed shape, from longing to loss. Every time I saw him, a piece of me fractured a little more. Months passed. Ethan proposed. I said yes. It wasn't joy that made me agree, and it was exhaustion. I wanted peace even if it wasn't honest. I wanted silence over chaos, comfort over fire. Cole was there at the engagement party, of course. Standing a few feet away, glass in hand, pretending not to notice me. When our eyes met across the room, everything I had buried rose again. The tea spilling, the touch, the kiss, the quiet understanding that we were never meant to stay. He smiled politely, the way strangers do. And I smiled back. That was the last real conversation we ever had. A wordless exchange of everything we would never say aloud. Years later, when I think back, it isn't Ethan's laughter or our wedding vows that echo in my mind. It's the silence between Cole and me, the kind that said everything words never could. People talk about love as if it's something you can choose, something that bends to reason or morality. But I've learned that sometimes love doesn't ask permission. It arrives, it consumes, and when it leaves, it takes the best parts of you with it. I stayed with Ethan. We built a life that looked right from the outside. But every now and then, when the night is quiet and the world has stopped demanding explanations, I remember that single glance, that forbidden moment when I saw who I really was beneath all the pretending. And sometimes, I think that was the only time in my life I truly felt alive.